Welcome to Cooking with Kayla. I'm Kayla, one of the registered dietitian nutritionists here at San Antonio Regional Hospital. And today we're making a creamy, comforting, delicious dish. It's a vegan macaroni and cheese. Except this recipe is extra heart healthy because it's not using any animal products in it. You get the cheesy, creamy flavor from nutritional yeast, a bit of lemon, and cashews, which give it the extra creamy texture. Macaroni and cheese is great to take to picnics, barbecues, or just have on a weeknight dinner. That's what I do. I make this recipe several times a month. I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so the first step to this recipe is soaking the cashews. This is a really important step because by soaking the cashews, you're allowing them to absorb a lot of moisture so that by the time we're ready to blend them up, they can be extra creamy. So if you haven't planned ahead, then you could totally start soaking your cashews about an hour ahead if you use hot or boiling water, or you can let them soak overnight. So we're gonna start with 1 cup of raw cashews, and then you wanna cover that with water and let that soak for at least an hour if you're using hot water, or for me, I soaked mine overnight, and you can see that the cashews have expanded in size because they've soaked up a lot of that water. So I'm gonna go ahead and drain my soaked cashews and we'll get started with making our cheesy sauce. So now that our soaked cashews are drained, we're ready to start making our cheesy, delicious sauce. So we start with our 1 cup of soaked and drained cashews into the blender or food processor if you have one. The higher speed blender that you have, the better, because it's gonna help our cheese sauce to get extra creamy, the better that we can blend it. And soaking that cashews for the proper amount of time really helps with that. So we have our 1 cup of cashews into the pot. Next, we're gonna add in our nutritional yeast. There's a 1/4 cup of our nutritional yeast. It's also known as deactivated yeast, and basically what it is it's gonna replace that cheesy flavor, very savory, kind of nutty flavor. It's also really high in vitamin B12, which is great for vegans who don't eat animal products. Next, we're going to add in 1/2 tablespoon of whole grain mustard. You could also use Dijon mustard here. I just like the whole grain mustard flavor. I've actually used twice as much in my recipe. Sometimes I've gone up to a whole tablespoon. But one of the great things about cooking from home is you can modify the recipe to your own taste buds. So next we're gonna add in a teaspoon of salt. I know this is a lot more salt than we usually use in our recipes, but since we're mimicking that cheesy flavor, the salt is gonna help to give that savoriness. You could definitely cut the salt down to 1/2 teaspoon, but for this time we're gonna use the whole teaspoon. You could also have a smaller portion once you're finished if you're worried about your salt. Next, we're gonna add in 1/2 teaspoon of paprika. I'm using smoked paprika here because I like the flavor, and the red color is also gonna help to give that orangey color to our cheese sauce. Next, we're gonna use a 1/4 teaspoon of ground black pepper, again for flavor. 1 clove of garlic minced. This is one of those things, sometimes I'm feeling garlicky and I'll put 2 cloves into my recipe. And next we're going to add in a little shake of turmeric. Turmeric has some wonderful phytochemical activities. It's gonna add a really bright yellow color to our dish. You need about a 1/4 teaspoon. You could add a little bit more if you want it to be more yellow, but you don't want to add too much of the turmeric because it can have a bitter taste. But it's really going to help with that color factor. And lastly, we're going to put in 1/2 lemon juiced. I got my lemon from my friend's tree, so it's kind of tiny, so I think I'll use the whole lemon. You need about 1 tablespoon of lemon. And again, the lemon juice is gonna add a little bit of brightness, and if you like that, you could even add more lemon or less lemon. It is your recipe, you do what sounds good to you. So we'll put that in. And next we're going to add in some water. The water is gonna help to bring everything together. If your blender isn't super high speed, you might wanna start with just adding about 1/2 of the water at first. Let it blend up a little bit and then add the rest of the water. If you want your sauce to be thicker, you would add a little bit less water. If you wanted a thinner sauce, then you would add more water. If you're making the sauce ahead of time, you might want to add a little bit extra water as well because the cashews are a little starchier than other nuts, so they absorb a lot of the extra moisture. So I put about half of the water in and I'm gonna start blending. Let's do it. We'll sneak a peek. Ooh, that's looking really creamy. I'm gonna add the rest of the water in now. And I'll probably let this blend for at least a minute because we want this to be super silky and creamy for our cheese sauce. So usually I boil my pasta water, and by the time my pasta is finished cooking, I have finished making my sauce. Today we're using whole wheat elbows pasta. I used about half of the 16-ounce bag, which is about 8 ounces. You could also use the pasta that's made out of chickpeas or garbanzo beans, which is one that I often like to use as well. And those come in 8-ounce boxes, so you would use the whole box of that one. So we needed 8 ounces of pasta. And I've already cooked our pasta here. I'm just gonna add it back into the pot now that it's been drained. And we're going to add in this luscious cheese sauce. That looks really good. Since I blended it so long, it allowed all of the ingredients to combine and just build a silky, delicious looking sauce, and it tastes really good too. You could definitely taste your sauce and see if you like it and modify your seasonings as you go. And I'm just gonna stir the sauce in since our pasta is hot, and I'm putting it back into our hot pot that we used for making our pasta. It's gonna warm up that cheese sauce. That looks delicious. So in the time that it would have taken me to make, you know, the box of macaroni and cheese, I was able to make this delicious vegan version. So I'm just gonna serve myself up some and we'll taste it. So our macaroni and cheese is complete. I've served myself a portion. A portion is gonna be about 1/4 of the recipe, which turns out to be about a cup of macaroni and cheese, which actually feels like quite a hearty helping. I like to pair it with some steamed veggies. Sometimes I'll do roasted vegetables while I'm making my pasta, and I like it because you can dip the veggies into the extra cheese sauce. Another way to prepare this dish would be to put it into a baking dish and put some panko breadcrumbs on top and bake it until the top is nice and crispy. That's actually what I do with my leftovers once it's all cooled down. This is a creamy, satisfying, and delicious dish that you can make any night of the week. I think I'll take a taste. That sauce looks so luscious. This is definitely one of my favorites. I'm so glad that you could join me for this episode of Cooking with Kayla. And remember, be gentle with yourself. See you next time.